Žižek's Ideological Cynicism and Belief, by Matthew Sharp. The Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Today's typical first world subjects, according to Žižek, are the dupes of what he calls ideological cynicism. Drawing on the German political theorist Sloterdijk, Žižek contends that the formula describing the operation of ideology today is not they do not know it, but they are doing it, as it was for Marx. It is they know it, but they are doing it anyway. If this looks like nonsense from the classical Marxist perspective, Žižek's position is that nevertheless this cynicism indicates the deeper efficacy of political ideology per se. Ideologies, as political discourses, are there to secure the voluntary consent, or what La Boétie called servitude volontaire of people about contestable political policies or arrangements. Yet, Žižek argues, subjects will only voluntarily agree to follow one or other such arrangement if they believe that, in doing so, they are expressing their free subjectivity, and might have done otherwise. However false such a sense of freedom is, Žižek insists that it is nevertheless a political instance of what Hegel called an essential appearance. Althusser's understanding of ideological identification suggests that an individual is wholly interpolated into a place within a political system by the system's dominant ideology and ideological state apparatuses. Contesting this notion by drawing on Lacanian psychoanalysis, however, Žižek argues that it is a mistake to think that, for a political position to win people's support, it needs to effectively brainwash them into thoughtless automatons. Rather, Žižek maintains that any successful political ideology always allows subjects to have and to cherish a conscious distance towards its explicit ideals and prescriptions, or what he calls, in a further technical term, ideological disidentification. Again bringing the psychoanalytic theory of Lacan to bear in political theory, Žižek argues that the attitude of subjects towards authority revealed by today's ideological cynicism resembles the fetishist's attitude towards his fetish. The fetishist's attitude towards his fetish has the peculiar form of a disavowal. I know well that the shoe is only a shoe, but nevertheless, I still need my partner to wear the shoe in order to enjoy. According to Žižek, the attitude of political subjects towards political authority evinces the same logical form. I know well that Bob Hawke, Bill Clinton, the party, the market does not always act justly, but I still act as though I did not know that this is the case. In Althusser's famous Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses, Althusser staged a kind of primal scene of ideology, the moment when a policeman, as bearer of authority, says "Hey you" to an individual, and the individual recognizes himself as the addressee of this call. In the 180-degree turn of the individual towards this other who has addressed him, the individual becomes a political subject, Althusser says. To the extent that it is not modeled on Althusser's notion of the subject, with capital S, in the name of which public authorities, like the police, can legitimately call subjects to account within a regime, Žižek's central technical notion of the big other closely resembles, for example, God in a theocracy, the party under Stalinism, or the people in today's China. As the central chapter of the sublime object of ideology specifies, ideologies for Žižek work to identify individuals with such important or rallying political terms as these, which Žižek calls master signifiers. The strange but decisive thing about these pivotal political words, according to Žižek, is that no one knows exactly what they mean or refer to, or has ever seen with their own eyes the sacred objects which they seem to name, for example, God, the nation, or the people. This is one reason why Žižek, in the technical language he inherits via Lacan from structuralism, says that the most important words in any political doctrine are signifiers without a signified, that is, words that do not refer to any clear and distinct concept or demonstrable object. This claim of Žižek's is connected to two other central ideas in his work. First, Žižek adapts the psychoanalytic notion that individuals are always split subjects, divided between the levels of their conscious awareness and the unconscious. Žižek contends throughout his work that subjects are always divided between what they consciously know and can say about political things, and a set of more or less unconscious beliefs they hold concerning individuals in authority, and the regime in which they live. Even if people cannot say clearly and distinctly why they support some political leader or policy, for Žižek no less than for Edmund Burke, this fact is not politically decisive. Second, Žižek makes a crucial distinction between knowledge and belief. Exactly where and because subjects do not know, for example, what the essence of their people is, the scope and nature of their beliefs on such matters is politically decisive, according to Žižek. Žižek's understanding of political belief is modeled on Lacan's understanding of transference in psychoanalysis. The belief or supposition of the analysand in psychoanalysis is that the other, his analyst, knows the meaning of his symptoms. This is obviously a false belief, at the start of the analytic process. But it is only through holding this false belief about the analyst that the work of analysis can proceed, and the transferential belief can become true, when the analyst has become able to interpret the symptoms. Žižek argues that this strange intersubjective or dialectical logic of belief in clinical psychoanalysis also what characterizes people's political beliefs. Belief is always belief through the other, Žižek argues. If subjects do not know the exact meaning of those master signifiers with which they political identify, this is because their political belief is mediated through their identifications with others. Although they each themselves do not know what they do, the deepest level of their belief is maintained through the belief that nevertheless there are others who do know. A number of features of political life are cast into new relief given this psychoanalytic understanding, Žižek claims. First, Žižek contends that the key political function of holders of public office is to occupy the place of what he calls, after Lacan, the other supposed to know. Žižek cites the example of priests reciting Mass in Latin before an uncomprehending laity, who believe that the priests know the meaning of the words, and for whom this is sufficient to keep the faith. Far from presenting an exception to the way political authority works, for Žižek this scenario reveals the universal rule of how political consensus is formed. Second, and in connection with this, Žižek contends that political power is primarily symbolic in its nature. What he means by this further technical term is that the roles, masks, or mandates that public authorities bear is more important politically than the true reality of the individuals in question, whether they are unintelligent, unfaithful to their wives, good family women, and so forth. According to Žižek, for example, fashionable liberal criticisms of George W. Bush the man are irrelevant to understanding or evaluating his political power. It is the office or place an individual occupies in their political system, or big other, that ensures the political force of their words, and the belief of subjects in their authority. This is why Žižek maintains that the resort of a political leader or regime to the real of violence, such as war or police action, amounts to a confession of its weakness as a political regime. Žižek sometimes puts this thought by saying that people believe through the big other, or that the big other believes for them, despite what they might inwardly think or cynically say. The end.